This is the Skeptic Squared podcast.
A safe place to make light of sacred things.
My name is Matt.
And I'm Corinne.
And in this program, we will be discussing current events related to religion, atheism, and skepticism. Our goal is not to insult believers,
Although that will probably happen from time to time.
but rather to share our point of view on these topics in a way which will benefit and entertain others.
Or maybe we just want to stroke our own egos. You decide.
Hello, and welcome to the Skeptic Squared podcast. Today is October 30th, 2016, and with me is my lovely wife, Corinne.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine.
We managed to to squeeze in an episode before the end of October.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's right. It has been almost a month, huh?
Yeah.
Or more than a month.
And we mentioned last time that we recorded in the last episode that you have been doing a lot of school in your master's program, and so that takes up a ton of time. So we don't really have a set schedule for when we're going to do this. We're just going to do it when we
Especially
can.
not now, yeah.
Just going to do it when we can.
Yep. And this is when we can.
This is when we can.
At night. After we've eaten dinner and showered.
Right. So let's just get right into it.
Let's do it.
So I do want to start, I think, with the whole Evan McMullin thing and how that's affecting the presidential race. Okay,
All right.
but before we get to that,
Oh.
okay, I have
So
some.
we're not starting with it.
Not exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So it's been a while since we've done one of these on the show. It's one of those.
Is it a quiz?
It's one of those BuzzFeed Who Said It quizzes.
Yes.
Okay. And the choices that you have are Donald Trump
Okay.
and Lucille Bluth.
Yes. This is going to be tough, I think.
You want to take a moment and tell us who Lucille Bluth is and why this is funny?
Lucille Bluth is a character on Arrested Development. She's the matriarch of the family and is just always drunk, incredibly racist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Constantly puts her children down. That's just funny.
Yeah, she's just a very condescending,
Horrible
elitist.
woman, but hilarious.
Yeah, she has some funny lines.
Yeah.
Just how insensitive she is kind of the running gag with her.
Yeah.
Okay, so first one. I've never seen a thin person drinking Diet Coke.
Lucille?
That's not going to tell us until we get to the end.
Oh.
Okay. So, Lucille. Is your answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. They didn't sneak into this country to be your friends.
Lucille.
Laziness is a trait in the blacks. Black guys counting my money. I hate it.
That's Trump.
I did actually do this quiz a couple weeks ago when I found it.
How did you do?
I think I missed one,
Oh.
but yeah. Anyway, they're building a wall to separate the U.S. from the immigrants, which was my idea.
Lucille.
Are you saying that because you remember her saying that?
I think so.
Yeah. Keep in mind, this show came on the air, I think, in 2003, something like that, or 4.
The wall season, though, is from season 4.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Which came out, when, 2012?
Yeah, a few years ago. Before Trump started running.
Right. Okay, the next one is one of my favorites.
Okay.
It's one banana. What could it cost? $10?
Lucille. You've never actually been in a grocery store, have you?
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people.
Trump. Oh, man.
Suddenly, playing with yourself is a scholarly pursuit. Who is it?
I don't know. Lucille.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I think I got that one wrong.
The only kind of people I want counting my money are little short guys that wear yarmulkes every day.
Oh, crap. Lucille.
I have a great relationship with the blacks.
Trump. Lucille would never want one. Am I right?
It's funny. If you're worried about criticism, sometimes a diet is the best defense.
Lucille. Probably to Lindsay.
Okay, you got 8 out of 10 right.
Oh, which 2 did I miss?
The only kind of people I want counting my money are little short guys that wear yarmulkes every day.
Yeah. After I said Lucille, I thought, maybe that is Trump.
Yeah, so that was Trump. Being a little bit racist.
Right. He must have said that after he said the blacks.
Probably. The other one that you missed is, I've never seen a thin person drinking Diet Coke.
Oh, it was Trump?
Yep.
I was imagining Lucille saying that to Lindsay while Lindsay's trying to bond.
So just to recap, these are the ones that Trump has actually said. I've never seen a thin person drinking Diet Coke. Laziness is a trait in the blacks. Black guys counting my money. I hate it. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists, and I assume some are good people. And some I assume are good people. The only kind of people I want counting my money are little short guys that wear yarmulkes every day. I have a great relationship with the blacks. And
After he calls them lazy.
Right.
Oh, man.
So,
I had never thought to compare those two, but they are really similar.
yeah. So that was, a fun little ditty.
We need to make a shirt, Lucille Bluth for president.
Who would be her running mate? Lucille 2? Lucille Bluth and Lucille 2?
I think Lucille, too, would try and run at the same time. Can you imagine
Try
a
to compete?
debate between those two? With Buster as her campaign manager and Lindsay as
Right,
Lucille's.
They're both trying to be, patronizingly nice to
Yeah.
each other.
And then the gloves come off in, the second presidential debate.
At least my husband is alive. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about Mr. McMullin
Yeah.
and how awful that name would be for a president.
President McMullin.
McMullin,
It sounds so redneck.
right?
It's Irish redneck.
Yeah. So who is McMullin?
He's that one candidate you've never heard of from the state you've never been to.
Right. Who was that? Colbert?
Colbert.
Yeah. Stephen Colbert said that.
Just
Yes.
a couple nights ago.
So it's funny because in Utah where we live, Evan McMullin is running for president and he's picking up a lot of steam. And the last polls that I saw had him about the same as Trump and Hillary Clinton. It was like a 3-way split, and then a couple of the popular third party people had a little bit here and there, but both Hillary and Trump were in the mid-20s, and I think McMullin was low to mid-20s.
Nationwide or just
For
in
Utah.
Utah?
For
Oh.
Utah.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So in Utah, he's a big deal.
Yes.
Okay. And that has caused a lot of people to ask the question, who is this guy and why do people care about him? Mm-hmm. And my personal view is that he is just Mitt Romney Jr., or as I like to call him, Mittens Jr. Because what he's doing is he's just riding the Mormon bandwagon.
Yeah.
You know, he's appealing to the sensibility that Mormons are the ones who are true patriots. They have the true gospel.
They maintain their values.
Right, the whole country, the whole United States of America was created for the sole purpose of creating the Mormon church. That's their view. Okay, That's what the Book of Mormon promotes. That's what they've been saying for years in their general conferences and whatnot. They'll never say that in the missionary discussions.
Right.
Well, they might, because they just really buy
Well,
into that exceptionalism, the American exceptionalism.
I mean, I'm
But it's
sure
not
they
part of
often refer to it as like the promised land, like they always do,
Right.
and that's what made way for this gospel to be restored.
Right. Yeah, but it's not like a typical thing that they just bring up when they're teaching people about the church. But it is definitely a core doctrine.
Yeah.
It's in there. Okay. And so what that creates is like this this hyper sense of patriotism, and American exceptionalism, but it also applies to Mormon exceptionalism. Like they're kind of intertwined in that way. And so he's just riding that train, and a bunch of people are jumping on his campaign just because they don't like Trump and they don't like Hillary Clinton. Okay. Ordinarily, I think the last time Utah actually voted for a Democrat for a presidential race was in like the 60s or something like that. Like it's been a really long time.
Wow.
Okay. So they've been a red state for decades. And so they really don't want to vote for Hillary Clinton. Okay. But they also hate Trump. They hate everything that he stands for. They hate his politics. And most of all, they hate his character. They think that he's an immoral person, And so when you get these videos coming out of him saying really inappropriate things about women 10 years ago, like the Billy Bush debacle, right? Mormons will say, well, yeah, he's just a bad guy. Like, we've been saying this all along. He's immoral. Like, there's nothing virtuous about who he is or his policies or the way he does business. Like, he's no Mitt Romney. Like Mitt Romney was this idealistic kind of Mormon businessman, right? He was principled. He was disciplined. Trump was the opposite. He was reckless. He was, just loudmouthed. He was dirty.
He's worldly.
Worldly, exactly. That's the Mormon term for it.
Yeah.
And so Mormons turned on Donald Trump from the very beginning. Like your dad would talk about this all the time, and that's why he supported Kasich, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't really like Cruz, but he was willing to settle for Cruz because Donald Trump is just a bully and just a bad guy.
But not as bad as Clinton.
But
On
not-
all of
never
the
as bad as
lists,
Clinton,
all
yeah.
the lists that he produced, Donald Trump was just above Hillary Clinton
Yeah.
every time.
Because Mormons don't like Democrats. Not across the board, but just kind of generally, especially in the western United States.
Yep.
Anyway, so
Especially older warbids.
yeah, so like your parents' generation, my parents' generation, like they're very much. I've talked to several people recently in the last few months about who they support and that kind of stuff, and younger people seem to be a little bit more open to democratic ideals, mostly because of social issues.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. Like, that's one of the things that turned me off from the Republican Party like 8 years ago when Obama was first running. And I was, I was thinking I was a Republican, I was a conservative, I had been brought up that way. This was around the time that I was starting to, not go to church and that kind of thing. So I was focused on other things. But I just kind of assumed that I believed in conservatism, But as I was listening to people like Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity on like Fox News and all that, I started to realize I don't agree with these people. Maybe I'm not a conservative,
Right.
And by the time I realized that I really wasn't a conservative, it was too late to vote for Obama. But he got it anyway, so it's, it worked out. Not that my single vote would have actually mattered, but anyway.
Every vote counts, Matthew. Every vote.
Unless you live in Utah.
Yeah.
Except for this time.
Except for this time.
This time it actually counts.
Yep.
And the reason why McMullin matters, boy, that's a mouthful.
McMullin matters.
McMullin matters. Is because he could potentially split the Republican vote, taking votes away from Donald Trump. And that will give a cushion for Hillary Clinton so that she can just sweep it.
Well, as long as it's only in the few states. If he catches steam in other states, it's going to be bad for Hillary as well. And
But he hasn't yet.
He hasn't yet, but you never know.
Right, and we're 8 days away from the election.
And there are other third-party candidates that other people are willing to vote for.
Exactly, like Gary Johnson and Jill Stein are the two big ones. I don't like either of them, but whatever. Anyway, but the point is, he could potentially take away votes from Trump.
Yep.
And that has a lot of people like Sean Hannity really upset and up in arms against Evan McMullin. Utah has, I think, 6 electoral votes. Idaho could possibly pick up McMullin, but not very likely. But they have fewer, it's like 3 or 4 votes, I think. Anyway, in this other article, they outline all of the red states, all the blue states, all the purple states, and then things that are leaning one direction or another direction. And what it comes down to is there are 4 or maybe 3 states that are kind of in limbo, that could go either direction. Okay, Ohio, Utah, I think Arizona, or maybe Nevada, one of those. But even if all of those states go to Donald Trump, he's still not guaranteed to win.
Right.
Hillary Clinton actually has a pretty good lead, at least according to this article that I found, which I can't find right now.
I found it one time.
But what it's doing in Utah, though, is it's creating this idea that
Mormons are going to stop Trump.
Mormons are going to stop Trump. They're going to save the day. They're going to prevent the apocalypse from coming early. You know, which seems a little silly for Mormons. It's like, why would you stand in the way of the apocalypse? It seems like you should be for it.
What about all those preparedness talks you get every year?
Right.
All that food storage.
Right. Which is especially funny when you consider the fact that there are several things, according to the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, the Pearl of Great Price, several things that church leaders have said. You have to have missionaries in every country. You have to have well, actually, they didn't say that you have to have a temple in every country. But there's going to be a New Jerusalem. There's going to be a temple in Jerusalem. And, you know, all of these things have to happen before the second coming will actually occur, according to Mormons. So why are they being so obstructionist? Why do they care whether or not something could potentially start an apocalyptic event? Because they don't think that it's actually going to start until those things happen first anyways. You know, does that make sense?
So you're saying that Donald Trump wouldn't actually hasten the apocalypse?
Right, according to Mormon theology.
Okay.
So why
So
are
why are
Mormons
they touting
so
that?
concerned about it? Because Mormons also believe that leaders are put in place by God, which is fun when you consider, like, Hitler and Stalin and those guys, you know.
All the candidates that they haven't voted for.
Right. But according to, you know, Mormon scripture, every ruler of a country is there because God put them there. And I think that there's a couple of quotes from the New Testament that support that, but it's very much a Mormon idea. So, I don't know. I guess my real point is Evan McMullin isn't going to affect the outcome of the presidential election, most likely. Whether
Fingers
it goes...
crossed.
Yeah, like, it's only 6 electoral votes, and Hillary Clinton is allegedly way far beyond 6 points. Anyway, but the other thing is that I want to talk about or hit on is that this just kind of highlights the Mormon mentality when it comes to politics and Mormon exceptionalism and how that, you know, just feeds into their view of our country, of America. Because you don't get this in other countries, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know about other countries.
Yeah, unless they decide to start intervening like they did in Mexico with the gay marriage proposal there.
Yeah, have you seen anything else on that? I haven't been very social media.
The last thing
friendly.
that I saw, this was a while ago. I guess we never talked about the outcome of it, but
No.
it passed.
Oh,
they
really?
have gay marriage now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. So, okay.
So
Church interference didn't stop.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
so church is 0 for 2, and the gay agenda is 2 for 0.
They're like 1 for 3 because they got Prop 8 passed.
Yeah, I guess. But in the
And
long
then
run,
it came.
didn't
Yeah,
really
in the long
matter.
run, it didn't matter, but for those few years, it really mattered to a lot of people.
Yeah, that was just a PR nightmare on their part. I still can't believe that they were just so public about it.
I know, and didn't get dinged for it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, which is another thing that's been coming up a lot lately is the way that a lot of churches, like Mormons, the LDS Church has been getting involved heavily in Utah politics this year when it comes to pornography and medical marijuana and a few other things like that. The hate crime laws. Planned Parenthood. So they've been getting very much involved in that stuff. So much so that with the case of medical marijuana, they actually swayed a few of the local leaders or whatever, so that it didn't pass. But there's also a new one going on the East Coast somewhere, I forget where it is exactly, where the Catholic Church is getting involved. Can't remember exactly what that one is. I think it's about contraception or abortion or something like that. That would make sense. Yeah. So, but they're spending, upwards of $1 million in advertising for that, and it's like...
Start paying taxes.
Exactly. It's like, this is something that is perfectly acceptable for you to do if you start paying taxes and become a political organization, you know? Like, that's what that is for.
Right.
But they're not going to. And the IRS, as far as I'm aware, has never really cracked down on that.
Not on religions.
Not on religions, on
like,
churches.
I just think about listening to the Atheist Experience, especially right now, because they're always being asked questions about candidates and like who they would endorse. And Matt Dillahunty is very, very like, we cannot, like we will not,
They won't endorse him.
It's crazy to see the difference.
Right. And the reason there is... the reason why he does that, Matt Dillahunty does that, is because his organization is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. They're an educational organization. And so in order for them to keep their 501c3 charitable status, they have to stay neutral in political endeavors. They can give a point of view on a particular issue like gay marriage or medical marijuana, those sorts of things. But they can't endorse a politician. They can't endorse a party. They can't try to sway an election in that sense. But those sorts of things are supposed to apply for religions as well, but the IRS doesn't watch them as closely.
Right.
And as far as I'm aware, they've never actually come after anybody for breaching that.
Prop 8 would have been the perfect time.
Exactly, because what is it, 8... A Mormon Proposition, the movie, the documentary, show that they invested at least a few $1 million in campaign ads and that kind of stuff, and sending people, door to door to promote this thing. Some estimates are as high as tens of millions of dollars, but most
You'll never know.
Right, we'll never know, and that's another big concern with the Mormon Church in particular is they have closed books. So you don't know where their money's going. And we talked about this the other day. They put a disclaimer on their little tithing slips a few years ago that says that the Mormon Church doesn't actually have to use the money the way that you think that they are. So on their tithing slips, you say how much money you're giving to tithing, how much money you're giving to the missionary fund, fast offerings, or humanitarian aid, and it's been perceived. It was. I remember in high school, like it was assumed that when you put $100 for the missionary fund down on that little slip, they would take $100 and give it to the missionary fund. Yeah. Okay, that's not what it is. That's not what they do.
Nope.
And so this whole breakdown thing in the tithing slip is a farce. Like it doesn't mean anything.
It's just a way for them to get more money out of the members.
Yeah, they itemize it and make it seem like you're giving less, I guess. So you don't see the lump sum.
Yeah, well, because tithing's not an option. Everything else is technically an option.
Right. But yeah.
But they're still going to get more money that way than saying, you need to give us 10% for each one of these.
Right. And this, of course, leads to a lot of arguments between believers and non-believers, people that have become disaffected from the church, arguing with like loved ones that still believe about church funds and how they use the money, how much money they use to spend, or how much money they spend on like the temples or church buildings versus humanitarian aid, because it's always assumed that the Mormon Church has the best interests of everybody on earth. Okay, right. That's kind of the way that they view themselves, like they're the saviors of mankind. But independent, outside people have tried to investigate it, and they estimate that the church brings in at least $8 billion in tithing every year. Every year. That's not counting any missionary funds or fast offering funds. Okay, and each temple is between $10 to $50 million. Okay, and they build them with such high caliber materials that it's supposed to last for 1,000 years. That's the idea. Okay, so we'll see how that turns out. But then they also put money into buying up land in Florida, lots of farms and ranches throughout the United States, different camps and things for like the Boy Scouts and not Girl Scouts, but like the Young Women's Program, so they can do their girls' camp stuff. And then on top of all of that, they have this multi-billion-dollar shopping mall that's across the street from their church headquarters that they just put up because they were tired of all of the riffraff, all the homeless people wandering around Temple Square, asking people for money. So they figured they'd up the value of the real estate down there by putting a $2 billion mall right in the middle of it. And so when people talk about how much money the church spends and how many resources they use in humanitarian aid, it's almost laughable when the church comes out and says that they spend, $40 million or something like that, is something that they said recently.
On what are you talking about? Humanitarian aid?
Yeah, humanitarian aid. They talked about that in some press release that came out earlier this year.
Right, yeah.
Right. Didn't we talk about that, I think?
Probably.
Right.
It's been so long in between episodes.
Right. And not to completely discount the $40 million that they give to legitimate causes.
But in comparison,
it's pennies on the dollar.
Yep.
Like $40 million a year, if that really is the amount of money that they give, is nothing compared to City Creek Mall. It's like the amount of money that they spend on a temple could feed, tons of people in major cities around the world. It's like
over and over again.
They could end poverty in Utah completely if they wanted to.
Yeah.
They could end homelessness if they wanted to.
Right.
In Utah, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's one of the most infuriating things driving around in Utah, seeing all of these temples and churches and just knowing how much money they dump into these buildings.
Right.
And the temples especially, because the church houses, okay, sure, they get used pretty much every day. They're communal, like hundreds of people use them. So it's a facility, it's a community thing. So in that sense, it doesn't bother me as much, I guess. But the temples, it's the most elite of Mormons that get to go in. You have to be spending, you have to be giving tithing for at least a year before you can even be considered to be allowed into the temple. You have to agree to certain rules and things. You have to have your temple recommend. Like it's a very rigorous process to get into the door. And then all you do, and then all you do is sit and watch a movie about the creation of the earth, which defies science. And it takes about 90 minutes to go through this ceremony. And you don't actually accomplish anything. Like, there's no real benefit. It's supposed to be like this spiritually enlightening thing where you have the doors or the gates of heaven opened to you, and so you understand things on a deeper level about the doctrine and stuff. But that doesn't make any sense when you consider the fact that you're not supposed to talk about what you learn with anybody.
Right.
Not even in the temple, really. Like, you can kind of sort of talk about some stuff in the celestial room when you're done with the ceremony. But you can't, they discourage people from spending long periods of time in that room. So once you're done with the ceremony, you can spend a few minutes, like maybe 10, 15 minutes, sitting in the nice couches, looking at the nice chandelier, and talk quietly with somebody that you came with about whatever, right? You
Your
can talk
spiritual awakening.
Right, you can talk about the video that you just watched or the ceremony you went through. But beyond that, you can't really talk to anybody about it. So whatever grand epiphanies you think you're having, I mean, it's nothing compared to what the church could do in terms of alleviating pain and suffering, physical pain and suffering, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just infuriating.
Right. Yeah, totally. Especially when they make the members clean the buildings.
Right? That just, yeah. I never actually did it.
I did a few times.
I avoided it. And it started, what year did that start? Because I think I avoided it.
I remember having to clean the church since I was little.
Because I think I avoided it when I went to college, maybe when I went on my mission. And then, you know, when you're at BYU, you don't have to clean anything because the cleaning crews, yes, it's just the maintenance for the school that cleans everything. So I don't think I ever had to do it. And by the time I graduated, I had pretty much resolved to stop going to church. So.
Right.
But yeah, I have a friend whose dad, he actually ended up being the bishop for my old home ward. And his job was the janitor at our church. So when they changed the policy, he effectively lost his job.
Did they help him get a new one?
I don't remember.
Ugh. That's bad form. On the topic of money, as I was looking for something to talk about, I came across something from, I think she goes by Kiwi Mormon, Gina Colvin or something like that.
Okay.
And she was talking about basically church funds and how they're not used the way they should be, basically what you were just saying. But something that she pointed out that I hadn't actually thought about is, so general authorities get paid once you reach a certain level. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
We don't really know how much it is. She estimated it's about, on average, like the average amount of money for a general authority would be about $80,000.
Which they call a modest stipend.
A modest stipend. Right.
Right, but that doesn't count use of church vehicles, airplane tickets,
Right.
meals while you're on church business.
Right.
Like they get subsidized for lots of stuff.
Right. But what she pointed out was that the women, like in the general presidencies, they don't get paid. They get reimbursed for gas, and that's about
really?
it. Yeah.
Even at the general level?
Yeah, at the general level.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's some more.
Nice sexism for you.
Yeah, more sexism for you.
It's bad enough that there's only 6 women in the entire church that have any real power.
Yep.
Right?
I think it
Relief
might be
Society
9
and the young women.
women's
Oh, and the primary. Okay,
Right.
so 9 women of actual power versus, what, about 200 men?
Yeah. Yeah, how many quorums of the 70?
3 or 4, I think.
Right. Plus
Yeah.
the 12 and the 3.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the mission presidents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's be real, the secretaries don't really do anything. They don't have any real power. They're the organizers.
Right. Okay. Ready to move on?
Yeah.
So I have an update
Oh.
to a story that we covered several months ago.
Oh.
One of the first stories that I think you brought up.
Oh.
You remember Sweet Cakes by Melissa in Oregon? Mm-hmm. The Oregon bakery that refused to bake a wedding cake for a same-sex couple.
Yep.
And then, sent out private information about the same-sex couple to try to defame them or whatever, and turned into this big PR storm. And so they got fined. I forget how much they got fined, but
It's like 160,000 or something like that.
right. And so they went to a crowdsourcing fundraiser site, right, and were able to raise a bunch of money. Okay.
Way more.
So when we last talked about it, it was in the $300,000 range, from what I remember, which was at least twice as much as what they actually needed to keep their business running.
Right.
Okay. Apparently, the new estimate is $500,000. Okay.
Okay.
And despite that, okay, so they raised $500,000. They've officially gone out of business.
How? People just weren't buying their stuff, or what? What are they going to do with that money?
Isn't that the question, though?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find...
Because if they take that money and run and close the business despite having business, that is incredibly shady.
Yeah. Let's see. So the discrimination complaint from the state of Oregon, blah, blah, blah. The bakery owners put the couple's home address, email, and phone number on Facebook. So poor form on their part.
Yep.
And somehow they were able to convince the good people of evangelical Christianity to give them a bunch of money, claiming that they were being discriminated against. So that was fun.
They're good
claiming,
Christian people.
Yeah, they're claiming that they were victims of a smear campaign and an economic boycott. Smear campaign, probably not, but I could definitely see an economic boycott. That makes sense to me.
Like people boycotting their store?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just refusing to do business with them.
Yeah, especially in Oregon.
The owners later made an appearance at Ted Cruz's rally for religious liberty.
Excellent.
As, quote, special guests victimized by government persecution.
Screw you. Why am I persecuted?
Thank you, Samantha B. Let's see. They raised a significant amount of money for their supporters in order to pay the $135,000 fine leveled on them by the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries. In a strange twist, the owners claimed that despite donations of nearly $500,000, they were unable to pay the fine.
What?
And then it says, don't worry, they eventually paid up. So they tried to avoid paying the fine, even though they raised, 4 times as much money as they needed to pay the fine. And then they just went out of business.
It's terrible.
So yeah, they presumably have kept all of that money.
Oh my gosh. I would be so upset if I had donated to that.
Right?
And they weren't keeping the business open.
Yeah, because that was the whole point, was to keep the business
It was to pay the fine
open.
and keep the business open.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
A couple of smaller articles. Did you have another article?
I don't have anything big we need to talk about.
Okay. So, let's see. Do you want the happy one or the less happy one? And by less happy, I mean pretty sad.
Let's do less happy. Let's end on a higher note.
Okay. So, there's a lady named Amber Pastor, P-A-S-Z-T-O-R, who is facing murder charges after smothering her 6-year-old son and 7-year-old daughter.
Ugh.
Would you like to place your bets as to why she killed her 2 kids?
So that they would go straight to heaven?
Quote, go to heaven with God.
Oh, man.
So this is, incredibly sad.
Yeah.
And we've talked about stories like this before. The one that I always go to is Andrea Yates, who drowned her 4 little boys for the same reason.
Yeah.
So that they could go to heaven.
Right.
Okay. Andrea Yates came out and said a little bit more specifically that she didn't want them to grow up in sin and then be damned to hell. Okay. So she killed them before they could be held accountable for any sins that they had committed, which is, that's a common thing in Christianity. It's part of Mormon teachings, even though I don't think she's Mormon.
Right.
And according to Christian theology, Mormon theology, pretty much any theology I can think of, these women who are killing their kids so that they can go straight to heaven are completely in line with the doctrine of their religion.
Right.
Okay? Effectively, they are sacrificing their own salvation, their own eternal salvation, so that their children can get a free ticket to heaven.
Right.
And on some level, you have to respect that mentality. But it's completely unnecessary. There's no evidence for it. If Christianity is actually true, then sure, they did the thing that they said that they were going to do, right? But this is all based on faith. It's not based on evidence. And this is the kind of thing that Christianity brings out of people. This is the logical
And then deny when
conclusion.
it happens.
Yeah, this is the logical conclusion of their beliefs. And exactly, they deny that this is part of their belief system. When Andrea Yates went to trial, her lawyer was able to get her an insanity plea or something similar to that. And so she got a softened sentence, and nobody in this jury thought that she was actually sane. Like, they thought that she was crazy because of what she was saying. But they were all Christians. According to their beliefs, she was in line, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I feel like for a mother to do that to her own children, she is on some level mentally unstable, though.
Right.
And the church just feeds into that.
But again, it's totally in line with their doctrine.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's one of the things that kind of... What didn't we talk about this once in an episode where we talked about abortion?
Yeah.
It's like, why do they see abortion as such a bad thing? Those children, presumably, if life starts at conception, and so all abortion is necessarily a sin and murder, then those fetuses, those children, go straight to heaven, just like the kids of this Amber Pastor and Andrea Yates. Same idea, they just go straight to heaven. So why is it this big tragedy? Why are we putting up all this legislation and whatever?
I don't know the answer.
I think it's because Christians don't really take their own religion seriously a lot of times.
Right.
Or they don't fully understand it. Like, they don't think it through to the end.
Well, I think human nature just interferes with that. Like,
Instinct.
human nature, human instinct is not to kill your young to save them. Like, that goes against everything evolution has, basically taught us.
Yeah.
Like, the point is to preserve your bloodline. And killing your children does not support that natural instinct.
Yeah. But then again, I mean, going back to, the Abraham and Isaac story, okay? You have to be willing to do that in order to really show your devotion to God, okay? In the story of Abraham and Isaac, sure, God sent an angel to stop him just before he actually killed him. But say Nephi in the Book of Mormon, told by the Holy Spirit to kill Laban, okay? A drunk man passed out in the street, takes out his own sword, chops his head off, and then steals his clothes so he can steal the gold plates or brass plates. Right. It's like that is where these beliefs take you. It doesn't just stop with being a good person, following the rules, paying your tithing, going to the temple. It's if God tells you to kill somebody, if it really is God telling you to do that, you have a moral responsibility to do it. Right. What God says is necessarily and by definition correct and moral.
Yep, but in today's day and age, it will not be God telling you to do that.
Right, they won't accept
that. It will always be the devil.
Yeah. Or
they will not accept that God would ever tell you to kill somebody.
Which is totally hypocritical.
Completely. Forget about the Bible. The Book of Mormon. Yeah.
So, I just wanted to bring that up because it's a story that comes up every now and again. We've talked about it before, so I wanted to touch on it. The more uplifting story.
Okay.
Let's see if I can get this name right. Nazi Paikidze Barnes. I'm pretty sure I got that last one right.
Barnez.
Probably. A 22-year-old champion chess player is boycotting next year's World Chess Championship competition in Iran.
Oh, does this have to do with the gender thing and... I don't know. Continue.
Here's a quote. She says, "I think it's unacceptable to host a women's world championship in a place where women do not have
Yeah.
basic fundamental rights and are treated as second-class citizens. The article goes on to say, in Iran, women are legally required to wear a hijab or headscarf. And she says that she doesn't want to support oppression, so she refuses to wear the hijab. And by extension, that means that she's going to forfeit this championship, which she could possibly win.
Right.
You know? Just kind of I thought it was a cool display of, I guess, feminism and protesting peacefully.
Yeah, I think they talked about this on TGIA, and they
What did
brought
they?
up, so she's boycotting it, because it's going to be in a place where women are oppressed or whatever, but it's a women's national, or like women's international chess championship. Why is chess segregated? Like, what about that game makes it so men can only play men and women only play women?
Right.
Which I thought was an interesting point.
That is an interesting point.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that.
I hadn't
'Cause it's
thought
so
through that
common.
either, but yeah, and it is incredibly common, but it is kind of a valid point. Like,
Yeah.
you are still playing a sport that's segregated for no apparent reason. Like, I understand why certain sports are kept apart,
Right, like
because men
basketball,
are just
football.
inherently stronger than women,
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
All them Wheaties.
Yeah. But chess, it's like you sit at a table and you move pieces.
Right, it's a mental
It's like you would
exercise.
think that they would want to integrate that sport just so that you could compete against, compare, minds, skill set, stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
Just a little aside.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
Eh.
Let's see. So I think the last thing that I have.
Okay.
So we've talked about the website Mormons and Gays.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're not ending on a high note.
Kind of, sort of. You'll get a kick out of this.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, this last week, the LDS Church, the Mormon Church, rebooted that website. They changed the URL so that it would be on their main website rather than this separate website. They changed it from Mormons and Gays, which gives the impression that there's two separate groups, to Mormon and Gay, so that they're together, right?
I didn't realize
So,
that.
right, implying that you can be both. Okay.
I always
And-
thought it was singular. Mormon and gay.
Okay.
I'm just pointing
before-
out my naivete.
Right. So before it was Mormons and Gays, and now it's Mormon and Gay,
Okay.
and it's on their actual official LDS.org website.
Right.
Okay. And it was this big deal. It got a lot of hoopla and everything, and people have been talking about it on social media a lot. A lot of people have been talking about how it still doesn't resolve any of the issues. It's great that they're trying to show some compassion and tell some compelling stories, but they're still promoting celibacy of homosexuals. They're still promoting intersex marriages, so gay men marrying straight women, that kind of thing, or vice versa. And this is supposed to be an acceptable alternative to being openly homosexual, like actually being in a gay marriage, for instance. And according to the Mormon Church, officially, this is a perfectly acceptable thing to require their gay members.
Yep.
Because as they put it, anybody who isn't married is expected to be celibate or abstinent. And since marriage is reserved only for straight couples, for a man and a woman, then therefore God doesn't want homosexuals to get married to each other. Okay? It's not us, it's God. It's that excuse. Okay?
All loving God.
Right. It's like we're not being the douchebags here. God's being the douchebag. And as we discussed before,
God knows best.
if God tells you to be a douchebag, you have
You
a
be
moral
that
you have a
douchebag.
moral obligation to be a douchebag. Right.
You be the best douchebag you can be.
Exactly. So yeah, it's just they have a few stories, and I thought about maybe playing a couple of the videos, but I don't really want to do that because I'll just take too much time. And I think we've pretty much said everything. Like it's a sad life to try to live. You know, both
And you can
Mormon
tell
and gay.
you can tell from some of those videos that they
Yeah.
are still struggling with
Yeah.
remaining celibate.
Yeah. because it's incredibly hard. It's against human nature.
And they recognize that they're being denied certain privileges.
Exactly. And so I guess we can just say, go check out the videos and watch these stories and see just how hard it is, this thing that the LDS Church is requiring of this minority group.
Right.
They're not requiring of straight people. Because it's not just about being in a relationship. It's also about, hugging, kissing, holding hands, public displays of affection, anything like that can stir up homosexual thoughts and feelings is considered a bad thing and should be suppressed,
right,
according to the church. So it's not just about sex, okay? Because that's something that they allow straight couples to do.
Yes.
Okay.
Only if you're married.
You can hold hands and kiss if you're...
Well, yeah, but you ended on sex.
Right, yeah. Yeah, anyway. So, before this website came out, there was a bit of a kerfuffle at BYU. Maybe kerfuffle's the wrong word.
Before this, this week?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So this was the end of September. And this is from rationalfaiths.com, which I'm not terribly familiar with. I know a lot of people like their stuff, but I'm not personally familiar with it. Anyway, so according to this article, this week in a BYU Provo marketing class of several hundred students, an employee of the LDS Church PR department came as a guest speaker on branding. Okay. He pulled up a website concerning showing love towards gay people and called it a, quote, evil and faith-destroying website that had appropriated the church's logo to make unsuspecting viewers believe it was authoritative.
Appropriated.
Okay, so what he's saying is, this is the church PR department employee, okay, so he should know what he's talking about when it comes to church websites, okay, that's part of their job. He's saying that this website that he's pulling up stole the church's logo and is promoting a view of how the church should interact with gay people in a way that isn't accurate. And he calls it evil and faith destroying. Okay? So what was this sinister website?
You showed me this, right? Oh, I don't know. I don't remember. But I have a quick question.
Okay.
What's the church's logo? Is it like the Angel Moroni?
No. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints thing that's on their LDS.org site.
Okay.
So he's saying that they stole.
Okay.
He's saying that they stole their top banner or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, and then put it on this other site. Okay, so what was this sinister website? None other than Mormons and Gays.org.
And now it's on their main page.
Which the church PR department created in 2012 and proudly announced in Deseret News and the church newsroom.
So that PR guy is not very good at keeping up on current events?
Apparently.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
But, okay, so as funny as that is, okay, it's a nice faux pas that we can poke fun at. But what it underscores here is that the church people, like just rank and file members, which I assume this guy has that kind of mentality, they don't see what the church is as putting on that website as being what is actually taught in the church.
Right.
And so
there's not actually an atmosphere of acceptance.
Right, exactly. And so when he sees a website that says mormonsengaged.org that has the church's logo on it, and it starts promoting love and acceptance and being able to interact in positive ways with homosexuals as a Mormon, he sees that as an affront. Okay?
Yeah.
And that shows the underlying homophobia within the culture that they have been creating for decades.
Yep.
So, but still, it's pretty freaking funny.
It is pretty funny. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess one other thing we could say is that there's a similar kind of phenomenon with the LDS Church and their essays, where they try to address difficult topics like historicity of the Book of Mormon, archaeology, the seer stones, polygamy, women in the priesthood,
DNA.
Yeah, DNA evidence versus the Book of Mormon history, and a lot of church people, even church leaders, don't know anything about those essays. Don't even know that they exist. If they've heard of them, they don't know where they are or how to find them. They've
They don't make it that easy on that website.
They've made it easier.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, they've made it easier in the last few months, but they've been rolling these essays out for a few years now. It's been at least 3 or 4 years. And most people just don't know about them. And the reason why is because they admit in these essays that in the past they've gotten things wrong. As Jeremy Runnels puts it, yesterday's false doctrine or anti-Mormon lies are today's church history. You know, because now they're having to confront things that they've tried to whitewash and hide for centuries.
Right.
And it turns out that there's evidence that the anti-Mormons were correct. Isn't that awkward?
Go figure.
Just awkward.
So awkward. We still have apologists.
Yeah, and they're spinning their wheels, keeping themselves employed. Anyway, anything else?
No, not really.
Alrighty. Well, I think that's our show.
Thank you for listening.
If you would like to contact us, you can email us at skepticsquaredpodcast@gmail.com. And you can check out our show's blog at www.skepticsquaredpodcast.blogspot.com. We're also on YouTube.
A couple of other random sites.
Yeah, a couple other places. Anyway, it's all on our
Skeptic
blog.
Lab.
Skeptic Lab, yeah. Fine resource.
I included them in one of my school assignments.
Oh, did you?
Yep.
Sweet. Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Adios.